Five, four, three, two.
Hello, everyone! Welcome to another episode of Arkosaurs Evolved. Here we talk about the weird and wacky creatures found in Ark Survival Evolved and see how they compare to their real world equivalents. Well, in most cases, some of the creatures are entirely fictional, but today is not. Today is,
Kind of.
it's based on a real creature, and there's real science behind the reconstruction. At least there used to be.
Yeah. Used to be being the key term.
That said, we're kind of lucky to hit such a high roller this early on in our series because I think this is a creature we were all kind of excited to get to, or at least I was. Now, before we get started and introduce ourselves, there are just two of us today. Dom could not make it. He has stuff going on. He is fine. He just couldn't make it today.
He's completely fine.
Yeah, he's fine. We promise. He's fine. Anyway, I am Dr. Dino, or Doc for short. Not an actual doctor, but I am doing some paleontology fieldwork out in Wyoming. I can't say much about what I'm working on, but it's something pretty big, and I'm pretty excited. And to my right is...
My name is Gojira. I am an incoming master's student preparing to go to the University of Bristol. We actually start our registrations for our classes and stuff tomorrow, as of this recording. And I too am working on a paleo project and currently preparing to get it ready for SVP. So, can't
Zaz.
talk about it much yet, but we're getting there.
Yes, and together we are 2/3 of the Boneheads. Oh, and also, as of last recording, I said my family was visiting, and we went to Yellowstone, because it's only a couple hours away. So I have a new hat for this video. And it brings out my devil horns that I get when my hair gets long.
And speaking of hair, I got a haircut, so my luscious mop is now manageable now.
Well, just so long as it's not flopping everywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
Now then, shall we get to a rather large, kind of floppy beast?
Pause. But yes.
Play. Alrighty. Today's episode, we are talking about Gigantopithecus. Or, as we were kind of going back and forth before the stream started, or before the recording started, is it Gigantopithecus or Gigantopithecus?
I believe it's Gigantopithecus, because, Giganto, that kind of prefix.
Yeah, but do you say Giganotosaurus, or do you say Giganotosaurus?
Giganotosaurus. I've heard some people say...
Gigantopithecus?
I've heard people say, Giganotosaurus, Giganotosaurus, Giganotosaurus. It's kind of like that. It's tomato.
That's fair. Well, at any rate, the name for this one is actually really, really easy. Gigantopithecus, or however you say it, split it in half. Giganto and Pithecus. Giant ape. You can see that same word, Pithecus, in a lot of fossil ape names. And
if you're a late 90s, early 2000s kid, you probably heard it in Australopithecus.
Oh, I mean, even as a modern kid, yeah. Australopithecus, well, I was about to say Paranthropus, but Paranthropus uses
Paranthropus.
It uses... Is that the Latin version? Oh no, that means man. That doesn't mean ape.
Yeah. Yeah, anthro is man. The species is Gigantopithecus, black eye. Now, you may be wondering, what does that name mean? What does the species name mean? Well, it actually comes from a pretty big, a pretty big uh, paleontologist, mammal paleontologist, named from a pretty big paleont. It comes from a big. I just blanked.
Like,
Sorry.
it's okay. Davidson Black, who passed
Yes.
away in the early mid 1900s, which was just before this big guy was found. So his
Yeah.
memory must have been lingering by, and I will have to pull up his name here so I don't. Well, I'll probably still mispronounce it, but
Yeah.
Ralph von Königswald.
Now, Davidson Black was a paleoanthropologist. He actually discovered what is now known as a subspecies of Homo erectus, known as Homo erectus pekinensis, and he was the chairman of the
Uh, the,
Geological Survey of China.
so Peking Man, right?
Yep, Peking Man,
Yeah, which
or Peking Man.
one of the fossils that I'm really sad was lost during World War II, and not the
Oh no.
first, or not the only one to be lost during World War II, but one of the sadder ones.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, we probably won't have a better chance to go into it, and I guess it was related to the guy. So, Homo sapiens, the living human species, isn't the only human species to have ever lived. There actually used to be quite a few. And the one that most of them descended from, or at least appear to, is called Homo erectus, or the upright walking man. And yes, if you have a dirty mind, I'm sure you can make so many
Yes.
jokes about it.
My dad and brother make that joke all the time.
Of course.
Yep.
I mean, you have to when you're a middle schooler,
Yeah.
at least. And hey, Mom said
Yes.
you had to grow up. But
Joke's on
Homo
you. I never grew
erectus.
up.
It's fair. But Homo erectus is special even among other human species, because outside of Homo sapiens, it is by far the most widespread member of the genus. We have Homo erectus in Africa, Europe, Asia, I believe some in Indonesia, and maybe even Australia, though I'm not certain on that one. They went everywhere.
Definitely Eurasia and Africa.
At the very least, which is still more continents than all but one other species of Homo. And one of the most famous examples of Homo erectus found in, was it the early 20th century or the late 19th century when it was found?
It was described in 1893, so I would
Okay.
assume, yeah.
So in the late 1800s, there were some Homo erectus remains found in Southeast Asia, and they were commonly known as Peking Man. I believe it was a mandible and a portion of the skull?
Yes, and that, like, it was, yeah, it was actually like the whole cranium or in the jaw, I think.
It's actually pretty complete. But for some reason, a lot of museums wanted to fulfill their debts in the years between 1935 and 1944. And a lot of ships carrying very precious fossils were completely lost. Peking Man was one of the unfortunate casualties. If you're more into dinosaurs, if you know Corythosaurus, it looks like it has a big helmet on the back of its head. It's a duck-billed dinosaur. I believe 2 extremely well-preserved specimens were lost
I
during
believe
that same
so.
time, which apparently they were just fabulous, almost entirely complete with skin impressions over the whole body. war isn't great for a number of reasons.
War is hell, and not just for people.
Yes, and the, my complaining isn't to make light of the human casualties either. Obviously, those were horrible. But we're here to
Astronomical.
talk about paleontology.
Yes. Now, Pekinensis, in specifically, was described in 1927.
Okay, described as a different species.
Subspecies.
Or subspecies, right. Well, Homo erectus used to be split into a bunch of different species because it's also, I think, the most variable human species, just in terms of like its morphology.
I suppose.
Well,
Like,
they're more diverse than modern humans, more diverse than Neanderthals,
yeah, that is true.
and we actually have a really good sample size. We have several thousand individuals at the very least.
Yeah. You know, Homo erectus is a pretty interesting topic in this Gigantopithecus video.
Okay, fair, but when else are we gonna have a chance to talk about it, right?
I mean, we literally play species of the genus Homo, so
I
maybe
mean,
an April Fool's episode where we talk about Homo sapiens.
oh, oh yeah, the Ark Homo sapiens might actually be more variable than Homo erectus.
Oh god, what did I get ourselves into?
Oh dear. Well, we'll talk about that eventually.
Yes,
Going back to Gigant. Man, now I'm gonna be
Gigantopithecus.
saying it every single way I possibly can because you scrambled my brain. Thank you.
That's what I do.
The big ape has a rather interesting tale for its discovery. See, unlike most fossils, which are usually found like out in a field or at the bottom of a hill somewhere, the first Gigantopithecus remains were a few teeth recovered from a shop in China, where they were being sold for medicinal purposes. They were marketed as dragon bones, apparently. And
Which, yeah,
I
sounds
mean,
about right.
honestly, with how big they are, I can believe that someone would at least try to sell them as that. But yeah, just a couple of teeth. And even though Gigantopithecus is pretty well known, arguably it's one of the most well known extinct apes, we don't have much more than a few teeth. As in, we have teeth and we have a mandible, a lower jaw. And that's about it.
Yep.
And there's actually a few interesting reasons for this. Or did you want to talk about the fossils at all before I get into environmental biases?
Let's see. Like, I do know that
This one just keeps.
he didn't. Well, of course we're going to throw poo at them.
I mean, apparently. Oh, hey, buddy.
So
how you
yeah,
doing?
like, so basically, they were not even described until 1952, I believe, because, yeah, Ralph, he was being kept in a Japanese internment camp during World War II, so...
Because it was the Well, actually, that was the late 1930s when that occurred, I believe.
Yeah, but, I mean, the Japanese were kind of in the whole Second Sino-Japanese War, so it kind of checks out.
That's fair. But those teeth, well, we'll get into stuff about the teeth later because they are very interesting. But, you know, us only really finding teeth and one or two other bones, it's kind of odd, don't you think, Gojiro? I kind of wonder if there might be a reason why. And I'm just gonna pan around this lush, semi-tropical forest really quick.
I don't know. I think those trees may have a bit of a bias against these big apes, don't you think?
Potentially. So, without beating around the bush,
But
yeah. In places with a lot of plant growth, you're going to have a lot of dying plants. And when plants die, they fall to the ground and, they form leaf litter. Giant masses of vegetation on the ground, and those rot. And as they rot, and as rainwater falls on them, they release a lot of carbon into the soil. And a lot of the time, that turns into slight amounts of carbonic acid. And the more plant material you have, as well as depending on the chemistry of the plants themselves, the more intense that acid is going to be. Carbonic acid does not mix very well with bones.
It does not.
It eats them dead. Not alive, but dead. And in fact, if you have ever drank pop or soda, depending on where you live, carbonated beverages, you can probably experience this yourself because it'll yellow your teeth really quickly. Like if you've ever met someone who just chugs a ton of pop, and I'm saying pop because I'm a Midwesterner, but after a few decades, their teeth will start to get really yellow, they'll start to get pits. Like it does a number on your teeth. And your teeth are way more chemically resistant than your bones. So just think of how badly that corrodes the bone. And that's why in a lot of these more forested areas, the best things to preserve are teeth. That's why for a lot of early mammals, most of them are known from teeth because they loved to live in forests. And forests hate preserving bones.
We were lucky to even find that mandible.
If I recall correctly, it was found in a cave. It wasn't even found in a forest. So
I think it was, so...
Extra lucky.
Very.
Because caves can also be a haven for carbonic acid, depending on the chemistry of the rock.
Exactly.
But with all that said, based on the name Gigantopithecus, you can probably guess that those teeth are pretty big, as is that lower jaw. And they are very big.
Big monkey.
Yep. I'll put up a photo right next to us here so you guys can see it, but it's pretty huge. It puts modern silverback gorillas to shame, which are, the currently largest living primate. And size estimates for Gigantopithecus have ranged throughout the years. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they can get as high as 1,500 pounds. Sometimes it's closer to about 800. It really depends.
In 2017, there was one estimate of about 440 to 660 pounds, but even that was admitted to be, like it's impossible to obtain a solid estimate without more specimens, and we're just kind of SOL on that.
Over why we don't have a lot of those.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of estimates of height as well. Some about as tall as 9 feet to about 12 feet.
Yeah, there's a huge range. I've heard 15 feet floated somewhere out there. But since we have so few fragments of the bones, to get a good estimate of how big it was, we need to base it on its closest living relatives. Which brings up the question, what do we base this on? As in, what is it closest related to? And Gigantopithecus has ping-ponged between a few different places over the course of its history.
Yes. And basically, is that a cue for the phylogeny?
Yes, please. Take it away.
All right. Well, Gigantopithecus, as you may guess, is part of the Mammalia, so it's basically a mammal. We all know mammals like fur, warm-blooded, milk, the whole shebang. It is a primate, obviously, but it's actually in these suborder families known as Haplorhini, which is basically dry-nosed primates. Yep. And as you can probably tell...
I
Was
was
that?
just gonna say, dry-nosed primates are most monkeys and apes that aren't lemurs or tarsiers. So the really
Yes.
primitive stuff.
Actually, it does contain tarsiers.
Oh, tarsiers are haplorhines?
Yeah? Like, apparently
Oh,
so.
what's the other group besides lemurs? There are
Let's
lemurs
see.
and there's something else in that group. Bush babies? No.
Um, lorises?
Lorises, that's it.
But yes, they are basically everything like all the simians and tarsiers. Now, they come from the infraorder Simiiformis, which is basically, the higher primates, monkeys, apes, us, and they're from the family Hominidae, which includes, you guessed it, hominids.
Yep.
They include all the great apes. They include chimpanzees, bonobos, orangutans, gorillas, and all species of humans.
You
Now,
know how
when we.
you reverse the camera?
Yeah,
Let me look up the keybind really quick because I just want to show. So, for those who don't know, I deal with young Earth creationists a lot, and a lot of them still try to fight and say that humans aren't apes.
when we literally look like them.
Yeah, there is no feature that makes an ape that is not found with humans. And you can just look at my character next to the Gigantopithecus here.
To
Which,
this.
granted, it isn't entirely accurate, which we'll get to eventually.
We will.
But there's a lot of. So, we talk about phylogeny a lot. Phylogeny is what animals are related to what other animals, what they descend from, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. You can use DNA to study phylogeny, which works exactly like a. I was about to say parenting test.
When it comes to the family Hominidae, Gigantopithecus, you are not the father.
Gasp. What is the test where it sees if you're like the father or the mother? What is it? I feel so stupid.
I think that is a parental test.
Is it a parental test? Okay.
I believe so.
Well,
Like,
if
I've watched Law and
oh
Order
oh
SVU,
oh
so
no.
oh no. Apes together, strong.
Strong.
Ape.
that, that poor Dilophosaurus.
Hey, like, it's basically God. That's basically how Godzilla versus Kong, how it could have ended.
We'll fight about that when we have Dom back here for you to fight with.
Yes,
But
I'm Team Godzilla, by the way.
at any rate, a parental
So,
DNA test. It works by
yes.
comparing your DNA, specifically a couple of very small, highly variable sites, to someone else. The more those match up, the closer you're related. We can do this within a species, and we can do this between species. So if we took your DNA viewer and compared it to a chimp, a gorilla, and an orangutan, you would be closest related to the chimp, and you both would be more closely related to each other than either of you is to the gorilla. And then that group is all more closely related than any of them are to orangutans. And Gigantopithecus is young enough that we can do DNA tests. And we have.
And the results of that come from the last bit of phylogeny, which is Gigantopithecus is part of the subfamily Ponginae, also known as Asian hominids. These include all species of orangutans, and there's I want to say tribe of them called Zilvapithecini, which include
Okay.
Ankaropithecus, Silvapithecus, Indopithecus, and Gigantopithecus.
Yep. And I just have all those scrolling across the screen. Yeah, they're each other's closest relation to the exclusion of everything else. And I love that this animal is young enough that we can tell that, which is kind of a giveaway. This
Yeah,
guy didn't live far off and long ago. The
it was
what's
actually
the
pretty
youngest
close.
estimate? About 20 to 30,000 years?
Yeah, about that, about 2 million years to about I want to say yeah, like
Also, I'm just going to go ahead and really quickly set
I
the
think
time.
actually the extinction window was estimated to be about 295 to 215,000 years ago.
Okay, so farther back than I thought, but still young
But
enough for us to
pretty
get
close.
accurate DNA tests, which is pretty frickin' sweet.
So, checkmate, creationists.
Oh, right, I was going on a whole rant. You can do DNA to do that, to see who's related to who, and you can also use morphology, the body. Like, how big is
Yes.
this? Does it have this feature? Um, we we do this using a method called, or we do this using character matrices, which are a very complicated topic, but they're
Yeah.
still pretty good at figuring out what is most closely related to what else. And a lot of that is backed up by DNA evidence in the modern day, which is pretty cool. There have been a couple tiny surprises. Um, I think Hyraxes being related to elephants was one of the bigger ones, and
Yes.
hippos being related to
Whales.
whales. But other than that, we were pretty on the money with most of our early, or not early, but with most of our guesses,
Most
which
of
I
our
think is
like
pretty neat.
yeah. Yeah, with most of them. I'd say it's a respectable track record.
Mhm.
And one character that basically sets Gigantopithecus and modern orangutans apart is basically, well, what we have of them, their teeth. They have very large and flat grinding surface with pretty even enamel and short dentine horns.
Yes.
And the molars
So,
are actually the most hypsodont of all apes.
which means
Basically, the enamel extends beyond the gums.
I believe that means that literally means high tooth, right? Or like
Yeah,
high or climbing tooth.
yeah, it's basically high crown teeth and enamel extending past the gingivital margin.
Mhm. But the interesting thing is, even though all we have of Gigantopithecus, barring the mandible, is teeth, we actually have a decent amount of teeth. And we have
Yeah.
enough from different ages that we can see the species changing, which is
Ooh.
really cool. It's one of the things that I, as a more dinosaur oriented paleontologist, am very jealous of this guy here for, because you actually have a sample size.
Yeah, though e- I should note that some of the specimens that aren't exactly in the most pristine condition either, so you gotta
But
take
at
what you
least
get.
you have them.
Yes.
Like, they
So,
exist. They're not dust in the wind. um,
yeah,
but
mammal paleontology has its perks.
yeah. But at any rate, another thing we can get from teeth is, or besides DNA, is isotopes. Now, I believe we've mentioned these before. I think we brought them up with Doedicarus. But
Yes.
essentially, what you eat goes into your body and helps grow your body. And what you eat is therefore recorded in your body. And in the tougher, harder parts, like your teeth, that record actually can last for a very long time. because enamel is very resilient to erosion, both physical and chemical. And according to the teeth of Gigantopithecus, it probably loved its fruits, at least toward the start, when the genus, or when the species first evolved, or that we first have records for. It seems they were probably primarily frugivores, or fruit eaters, though they probably ate a little bit of everything. In fact, an interesting trait of these teeth is that a solid percentage of them have cavities, meaning they ate a lot of sugar. Which, hey, you find that in fruit.
Yeah. They have jaws adapted for, grinding, crushing, and cutting, which is perfect for
Yes.
going through tough fibrous plants. So,
And that's
yeah.
something kind of shared by basically all apes, and I think most primates. Primates in
Yeah.
general tend to have very generalized teeth. And what I mean by
Yes.
that is if you look at your cat, like if you have a cat and you look at its teeth, a lot of its teeth are very sharp and bladed because cats are carnivores. If you look at a cow's teeth, they're much more suited for grinding up grass because that's what they eat. Your teeth tell us what you eat. But you
Now,
don't have to specialize like those two. You can just stay a generalist, and most primates do. That's why humans can eat just about
anything.
everything.
Yeah. Like, basically anything. That's one of the reasons why we were so successful.
I think we're the only mammal that routinely eats stuff with a lot of capsaicin in it. We like spicy foods. We like foods that most other animals find to be poisonous. It's really weird.
Yeah, we have our own niche.
And then we also eat poisons because we're smart, but we're also stupid. What can you
Yes. Uh-oh.
do? Oh.
We gotta... Oh, you cut out for a second.
Oh. Well, at any rate, I was saying how we have enough data to tell that the species changed as time went on. As time goes on, the shape of the teeth changes slightly, as does the isotope content. And it shows a transition into more of a grassy diet, maybe even eating bamboo, a lot like pandas. Which, funny enough, they shared an environment with. Gigantopithecus lived recently enough that a lot of the stuff it lived with hasn't changed much. Like, it lived with pigs, it lived with deer, it lived with
It lived with
elephants.
tigers.
It lived with tigers. It lived with a saber-toothed cat, too, which is pretty interesting. It lived with ancient elephantids like Stegodon, which I wish we had a chance to talk about because there are some weird Stegodons out there.
They're so cool. I love all Proboscideans in general, so...
I think maybe even a Gomphotheer, though I could be wrong about that. Which,
I'll have to look at that.
which for anyone who doesn't know, is like an elephant but with 4 tusks.
Yes, like,
Because of course
if you
that
go
existed.
if you go to the Museum of Geology in Rapid City in my undergrad school, we actually do have, like, a splayed out Gomphotheer in a glass case, and that skull is huge. Like, it is massive, and you see those 4 tusks just spurting out of it. Like, honestly,
I believe it.
I would not judge you if you thought that's from Lord of the Rings. Like, that can't be
Well,
real.
I wonder what inspired them.
I don't know.
This is
Maybe it was a Hyrax.
or something closely related.
Bring it back
Anyway,
around.
yeah, and as for the environment Gigantopithecus lived in, this is actually a pretty good comparison. If it had more bamboo, which I know there are spots on the island with more bamboo, but it seemed like a nice open area, so I settled here. Also, I'm dying apparently. If only I had a way to quickly gather berries.
Oh, before we get to the Ark stuff,
Oh yeah,
should
I'm
we?
just gathering berries before I die.
Oh, so you may you may have noticed that we talked a lot about orangutans when comparing it to Gigantopithecus. That is because for a long time we used to think Gigantopithecus was a lot more hominid in its morphology. We used to think it was, like a big Bigfoot looking creature. But with more recent analysis and our understanding of its phylogeny, we now believe that it was probably much more similar to a big orangutan.
Which does unfortunately mean it was probably not bipedal. It was
Yes.
probably quadrupedal, but we can't entirely rule that out until we find more of the skeleton. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but that's how it goes.
And it probably wasn't a big tree climber like orangutans.
Yes, it probably lived most of its life on the ground, and it was just big enough to like reach up into trees for fruit. And
Yes.
if I recall, that's one of the proposed reasons why it might have started going extinct, or at least changing its diet. Um,
Yes.
because
Because it's
the,
in.
or well, because the climate was changing, there were less fruits. The area
Exactly.
was becoming much more open. There were savannas developing. I believe this was with the approach of not the last glacial maximum, but one of the big ones.
I believe so, yeah.
And there was
And
also an influx of smaller primates into the area, which probably went after the fruit and got to it before Gigantopithecus could.
yeah, so basically, much like a lot of Pleistocene creatures, Gigantopithecus just couldn't adapt to the climate change. Like, it was too specialized for its own good, and when it became cooler and drier, all the forests that it depended on disappeared. Now, unlike a lot of Pleistocene megafauna, there's there's been we don't have a lot of evidence for if the aforementioned Homo erectus contributed to it. Like, there was human activity as in southern China as far back as about 800,000 years ago, but it doesn't become prevalent until after Gigantopithecus went extinct. So,
But that said, just my own personal headcanon, I guess. Oh yeah, Homo erectus saw this thing, and it probably made its way into some local legends. Which,
yeah,
there is one other thing I want to mention before we get into that, if that's okay.
yeah,
So, I mentioned that we have enough Gigantopithecus to be able to tell some things. And one of the things we can tell is it appears to have been pretty sexually dimorphic.
hmm,
Now, this is something we brought up on the channel before. Sexual dimorphism is when the male of a species and the female of a species are significantly different. That can be in size, coloration, or behavior. In the case of Gigantopithecus, it seems to be mostly in size. Now, while the females were probably about the size of the largest modern gorillas, the males appear to have gotten quite a bit bigger.
mm-hmm,
And funny I mentioned gorillas because the degree of sexual dimorphism actually appears to be pretty similar between Gigantopithecus and gorilla.
say that 5 times fast.
Gorilla. I tried.
Ha!
Um, and that
There,
has
little.
implications because this is a primate.
Yes.
Now, keep in mind, I'm not a primatologist. I just think they're fascinating, and I've taken a few classes on primatology. But there is a very strong correlation in primates between degree of sexual dimorphism and social behavior. Generally, the more similar the sexes are, the more likely you are to have monogamy. like we see in humans and in or and sorry, either monogamy like you see in humans and gibbons, or promiscuity, which you also see in humans, but more commonly seen in chimps and bonobos. And that's just where no one is really beholden to anybody, everyone just has fun. And in chimpanzees and bonobos, that actually seems to be a reproductive strategy because no one's entirely sure who's related to who, like whose kid is whose. The males just protect all of the kids.
Hmm.
Now they do have their own methods to combat inbreeding. They both handle it differently, but it's a reproductive strategy. When you have a high degree of sexual dimorphism, like you see in gorillas or in orangutans, one of two things happens. Usually, either one, the males will have a harem, as in the males will court a bunch of females, and they'll protect the tribe and raise their children, and just like one, maybe two males per group. The other option is to do what orangutans do, where you live in very loose social situations, but you're mostly solitary. And the male will be off doing his own thing, while the females kind of stick a bit closer together. And this pattern is very consistent in primates. So that suggests that either Gigantopithecus lived in a harem, or they were pretty solitary. Now, because of their size, I would guess that they were probably more solitary, but it doesn't rule them out living in harems either, which I think could be pretty neat.
Yeah. Seeing basically a big harem of these King Kong looking apes just, just doing their deal.
Yeah. It'd be something pretty spooky to come across, especially because
Yeah.
you know that the male that's twice the size of the females is probably staring at you.
Pretty much. And that actually had a hand in basically how. So with gorillas, we don't really know of them, climbing up trees like chimpanzees do. They got so big that, like, basically, you can be at a certain size to be arboreal. Like,
Well,
orangutans are
that
pretty.
so that actually depends. Female gorillas do climb up in trees, and if I
Yes, but
recall, they
silverbacks do
actually
not.
prefer to sleep in trees.
Yes, but the
The males
silverbacks do
are
not.
big.
Yeah, and basically what happens is because they evolve, to be exclusively on the ground, they don't have that. Silverbacks do not have that size limit, so they can get as big as they want, which, in a gorilla sense, is about up to 400 pounds, so
Yep.
pretty big.
And in
And with
Gigantopithecus, potentially double that.
so we can safely say that Gigantopithecus was not climbing in trees.
At least not as adults.
Not as
Potentially
adults,
as
babies
juveniles.
mostly.
Oh, I would be surprised if they didn't, at least to some degree, as juveniles. Which could be kind of interesting. But
Yeah, like a
we
little
don't have enough
onto
data to say for sure, sadly.
little ontogenetic niche partitioning.
And maybe to a degree, it's not impossible.
Yeah.
So that jumble of words that Gojira just said is basically when you do different things at different stages in your life, because your body is shaped different.
Yes.
Probably one of the best examples of this is T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus
Yes.
Rex.
Yes.
Do you want to
And
explain it since you brought it up, or do you want me to?
yes. Oh, leave it to me. Like
Okay, have
T-Rex
at it.
is T-Rex is my T-Rex is my baby. So T-Rex basically, like, in the early 2020s there was like this big investigation going around of like, why aren't there a lot of mid-sized mesopredators, or like occupying the middle of the food chain kind of predators, like anyone like in the 1 to 2 ton range. We don't have a lot of that in the Hell Creek. So basically, what they found was different stages of T-Rexes occupy different ontogenic, different ecological niches. The small juveniles probably went after faster, smaller animals, whereas the big adults went up against big game like Triceratops and Monosaurus. And we actually do see this in modern animals as well, particularly in reptiles. Crocodiles do this. The baby crocodiles, the hatchlings, will go after like tiny bugs, small reptiles, some insects, and as they get older, they get to bigger and bigger game until they get to the big adults that'll go after, zebra, wildebeest, and maybe in the case of Gustav, maybe even hippos. Because you've
Oh,
seen,
the huge
yeah,
crocodile from the Nile.
oh yeah, Gustav, the man-eater. Because if you've seen videos of Gustav, you will know that, the hippos are terrified of him. Something had to have happened. And
Sarcosuchus lives.
if only. And we also see this in Komodo dragons,
Oh,
which
true.
kind of do something similar.
Oh, and
Now,
juvenile Komodo dragons love to climb trees.
yes, they do. Now, obviously, what works for reptiles can't exactly be transfer one to one for mammals, but we do have bears, grizzly bears, where the young will be great tree climbers, but as they grow into adults, they basically get exclusively on the land. So maybe Gigantopithecus did something similar.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things where until we have more fossils, we can't say for sure. But I would not be surprised at all if it turned out to be the case.
Yes. Once we get to T-Rex, I'll go into much more detail.
Oh, wow. That'll be like a 5-hour video.
A small price to pay.
Well, while we talk about other creatures, I guess, shall we start getting into Bigfoot?
Oh boy. Oh wait, before
Oh
we get to
boy.
that, should we actually, before that, should we talk about, appearances in popular media?
Sure. Do you have any ideas? I don't have many.
Oh, I got
I
several.
actually, Walking with Cavemen. I remember it
Yes.
appearing there.
In a very silly looking costume, but it had its own charm.
It was Walking with
But,
Cavemen.
yeah, it wasn't peak walking with, but it was charming in a corny way. But Gigantopithecus, outside of Ark, actually has a couple popular media appearances. The two most notable ones are, again, Ice Age 4, which basically a Gigantopithecus is the main antagonist in Captain Gut, and it's, despite being cartoony, it's actually a lot closer to what we think Gigantopithecus may have looked now than this guy. He was a lot more orangutan in proportions. And honestly, he was the best part of that movie. I mean, Peter Dinklage as a Gigantopithecus.
He was played by Peter
Yes.
Dinklage. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Now I have to see this movie.
It's not the best, but it has a cool villain. And speaking of cool villains that are voiced by great actors, if you know the remake of The Jungle Book, Jon Favreau's Jungle Book, i.e., the one Disney remake that they actually got right and is actually better than the original, it actually
I don't know if I
has,
agree with that, but I will agree it's probably the best of the remakes.
by far. And, I mean, not much competition, but still. And it actually has King Louis, instead of an orangutan, is a Gigantopithecus, played by Christopher Walken, of all people.
Was that confirmed by the director? I know it was confirmed somewhere.
It's literally in the lyrics of I Want to Be Like You in that movie.
He calls himself
Like,
a Gigantopithecus.
yes, I'm not making that up.
I didn't catch. Maybe I did. That sounds familiar. Did he say something
Like
like, "You
it's
won't catch this Gigantopithecus" or something?
like like me a Gigantopithecus something.
You know,
Like while you look
I
up the
gotta look this
lyrics,
up.
yes, it was a Gigantopithecus played by Christopher Walken, which automatic win. Like Christopher Walken makes any movie better. And I'm not saying that because like my mom's a big Christopher Walken fan and like she kind of indoctrinated me into it, but still. And let's see. I'm trying to think of what other big media appearances. Ice Age 4,
Um,
Jungle Book. Oh, yes, yes.
what?
So, and also, like in Peter Jackson's King Kong remake, the main theory of how, like, Kong species Megapromatus Kong came to be was that it was actually a descendant of Gigantopithecus that basically came to the island in the way a lot of island animals come through either like drifting on big pieces of wood onto the island or being brought to the island by the ancient natives that once lived on the island, despite him being basically a scaled up silverback, but still, best King Kong movie.
Uh, so I'm looking in the lyrics, and I'm not seeing anything about Gigantopithecus, but it could just be bringing up the old movie.
Yeah, I think you're looking
Probably
at
is.
the
I
original.
can't find it. But
Here,
I believe it.
oh, let me find it. Yep.
And
Now you might think it's ridiculous that me, a Gigantopithecus, would ever dream I'd like to team with the likes of you, man cub.
okay, what do you know? Huh. And that might be the most accurate question mark Gigantopithecus in any film.
Yeah, like
Or at least
I mean,
based on the science until we find more.
I mean, it's basically a scaled up male orangutan, but
Hmm.
I mean, it's the closest we got.
Yeah, and it feels right, honestly.
Yeah, and again,
And
Christopher Walken, so
yeah,
perfect casting.
can't go wrong with him. And I was about to ask if you would consider King Kong Gigantopithecus, but it, at least in the Peter Jackson one, I can believe it. Um, Obviously, it's more based on a gorilla.
Yeah, like again, it's basically like an unproven theory that Megapromatus Kong is a descendant of Gigantopithecus, but yeah, I would believe it. Like basically supersized as a defense mechanism with in order to defend itself against all the carnivores on Skull Island. I
In a
believe it.
world where species can just have runaway gigantism. Yeah,
Yeah, like
and maybe the
in a
gravity is lower because
maybe
the Earth is hollow. Well, that's the monster verse.
it is. Okay. The Hollow Earth, like I have a geology background and trying to justify the Hollow Earth, it just gives me a headache.
Oh, it
Like
absolutely does
it
not
gives me
work.
pain.
But at least
It
we
does
can
not.
say that it's definitely not our Earth, so the gravity could be different.
Like honestly, with Kong Skull Island and King of the Monsters, they had it where it's basically like air pockets in the Earth's crust and that are all connected by tunnels, and that's actually a lot more reasonable than just like journey to the center of the Earth. But
Yeah.
monkey.
Well, shall we talk about the other giant ape in the room that this guy looks a lot more like?
Bigfoot? Yes.
Yes! So, people, if you live anywhere on Earth, your local culture, well, except Europe maybe, your local culture probably has some kind of story about a giant ape man of the woods. In America, it's often known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. In South America, it's a little different. Um, I forget what it's called, but it might also be a giant ground sloth, which we'll get
In the
into with my
Himalaya,
theory.
in the
Oh,
Himalayas, it's the Yeti
the Yeti.
or the abominable snowman.
In Africa, or in, well, I know there is one in Africa, but in Australia, it's the Yowie. Um,
And in Indonesia, it's orang pendek.
yes, which might be one of my favorite ones, even though it's possibly the smallest of the big feet. Uh,
Yeah. Or
but
should I say smallfoot?
maybe.
Eh? Eh?
But yeah, it's a very very common cultural myth that you see all over the world, and I mean you could probably draw on it from like a sociology point of view or some far off memory of when we had other human species, which, depending on the area, could actually be kind of viable. Um, they're probably none of them are real, unfortunately. Um, the most likely one, I would say, is probably orang pendek from Indonesia, but that's because the islands of Indonesia already have a large primate, and they are very thickly forested. But
For now.
yeah, but sadly, I don't think there is one in North America. It's not impossible. I want to make that very clear. It's actually, at least in my opinion, it's one of the more believable cryptids that are out there. But it's very unlikely with how well
Yeah.
traveled most of the world has become, and with everyone having a camera in their pocket every day.
And they just so happen to, whenever they see a Sasquatch, get like chills or shingles and they get very shaky.
Mm, how many videos do we have of bears, or wolves, or lions, or
Or tigers.
tigers, so many other things that people would be terrified of? But we have so many videos of them, and we just don't have anything good for
I
the big
mean,
feet,
Patterson, Patterson Gimlin, like, there's been a
which
lot of studies on that.
there have been. Actually, I think I can probably, it might be public domain, so I can probably play it right now. I think that is the most convincing footage I have yet seen.
Yes, by
And
far.
keep in mind, I'm not super great with biomechanics, but from what I've heard from people who are, it does not move like a man in a suit.
It would be a really well made human in a suit.
But it's more of just like the femur is too long
Yeah.
for the
And
size of the creature because we have sized it, and I think it is 8 to 9 feet tall.
I thought
The
it was 7.
femur, is it? I thought it was closer to 8.
Yeah. I thought
I,
Patty was like 7 feet tall.
let me double check. Patterson, Gimlin, Patty, height. Um, mm, let's see. Also, my face is being blown the heck out right now. Looks like about 6.5 feet,
Huh.
which, okay, maybe not. But uh, so keep in mind, again, this is just what I've heard. I haven't done the math on this. I wouldn't know where to start. But the anatomy just isn't right for the limbs, is what I have heard. And I'm sure there are some ways you could pull it off with really good special effects, but I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Hmm.
And honestly, I would love for Bigfoot to be a real thing. Or
Yeah?
Sasquatch, the name I actually prefer. I'd love if
Yes.
Sasquatch were a real thing. I just don't think it's likely.
And honestly, like, there is a book by Max Brooks of World War Z fame named Devolution that actually goes into like a scenario of like, what if Sasquatch was real? It basically
Yeah?
has this eco village that is cut off from civilization by the eruption of Mount Rainier, and to quote Unnatural History Channel, a troop of starving Sasquatch arrive and realize humans are made out of meat. So, yeah. And it goes about as well as you expect. Like, it's actually really up to snuff with primate behavior, and might be my favorite rendition of Sasquatch so far, even if it is only text.
You know, the funny thing is, there is a young Earth creationist version of that, and other than all of the anti evolution stuff, it's actually not horrible. There's a read through of it on YouTube by the YouTuber Gutsick Gibbon. If you guys watch us, I'm sure you know her. Gutsick Gibbon, Erica. She is wonderful. Just look up Gutsick Gibbon Bigfoot, and you'll probably see it.
Mm.
It's a real trip, but it's actually pretty fun. It's a fun ride.
Now, if you are wondering why we're bringing up Bigfoot in a Gigantopithecus video, that is because one of the main theories that has gone around to justify Bigfoot or Sasquatch is that it is a surviving population of Gigantopithecus that crossed the land bridge from Asia to North America
Mhm.
and resided in the Pacific Northwest.
Which is actually possibly one of the most reasonable cryptozoology theories I have ever
I
heard.
mean,
Yes,
it's
because it happened for so many other mammals.
yeah, but again, like the way it's described, like as basically a big furry man
Okay,
versus what we
I
think of Gigantopithecus now,
okay,
it's
I'm just talking about the I'll just the hypothesis itself. I think it is a valid hypothesis that needs testing. But I don't no, it's not even a hypothesis because it hasn't been tested. It's a good idea. Like the idea itself I think is sound because we have evidence of so many other large mammals making the same trip both ways. Like it's just an
yeah,
interchange and we know mammals did that. I'm not saying
but
it's
it's not
right, but it's plausible.
it's not a bad idea per se. It just doesn't line up for me. Like I feel like it would have gone extinct before like it really started to take off and migrate to North America.
I don't know. But like I
But
don't know. Like
anyways,
I do want to make it clear I don't think Bigfoot is real. Again, I wish it was. But it's one of the more plausible cryptids out. It's more plausible than like Nessie or El Chupacabra, which we will get to talk about. At least one version of it.
you mean the coyote with mange?
Or something else. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, for me, I would say like I'm personally like I'm open to the idea of Sasquatch. Like I do think it's possible,
Hmm.
but I'm a I'll believe it when I see it kind of guy.
Yeah.
If you give me like legitimate evidence, like a body or blood samples that confirm there is a big primate residing in the Pacific Northwest and they have a viable population, I will put my foot squarely in my mouth and say people were right.
Yeah, same here. And I do still think Orang Pendek is probably the most likely of the big feet. Um, just because orangutans
Yeah.
exist.
And I do like hearing stories about sightings of Bigfoot. I do think those
Yes.
are still really fun. Like, if you know us, you'll probably know Bob Gimlin, who actually does a lot of really good illustrated retellings of Bigfoot encounters, as well as
Oh,
historic man-eater stories, like the Lions of Savo and the bear in Japan that killed a bunch of people. And he's
I,
actually really good.
I've never heard of this person. Bob Gimlin?
Yes. Like,
Okay,
he's on YouTube.
I'm gonna put him in my search bar for later because I've never heard of this person.
Yeah,
And
he does a lot of really good stuff.
yeah, I'm a sucker for those kinds of stories.
Like, and it is cool seeing hearing alleged audio of Bigfoot. Like, probably my favorite one is the one in Ohio where it's like this moaning howl, and you hear dogs barking in the distance in response of it.
Oh, okay. I've seen his Lions of Savo video recommended to me before.
Yes. Yeah, it's really good.
Huh. All right. Well, do we have anything else to say on Bigfoot or on Gigantopithecus before we go into the Ark version?
Bigfoot makes for really cool movies and good
I
books.
I think it's one of the better horror movie monsters just because it's so believable.
Yeah.
Or
Like
have,
Legend of
have you
Boggy
ever seen
Creek is a
Harry and the
classic.
Hendersons?
No.
Oh, it's one of my favorite like family comedies. It A family runs over Bigfoot and they adopt him.
Uh, oh wait. I think I know that one.
It-
Is that like the really good Bigfoot suit with the Riz face?
I think it was a really good suit. I think it had red hair, either red or
Yes.
like a reddish
Yes.
brown.
Now I know. Now I know. Like, it's a classic.
It's yeah, that one. Yeah, it's great.
We'll post an image here and we'll show you
Just an image of the smiling face.
his Bigfoot Riz.
I Did they use the same suit for all those what was it, beef stick commercials or something?
I don't know if it's like the same suit, but it does look similar.
It looks similar.
Oh, and Legend of Boggy Creek. That is a classic. Like, it is
Ooh.
underrated as hell.
Okay, yeah, I just double checked. It's not the same, but it is actually pretty similar. Ah, well, at any rate, shall
Yes,
we
let's
talk
talk
about
about Ark.
Ark? Okay, so
Yes.
first thing that should be probably relatively obvious. This Gigantopithecus is based on the older reconstruction of it being a biped, which,
Yeah.
you know, I can't blame them for that. And I think it's a good design. Well, we'll get into that later, but I don't mind it. I like it.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you cut out for a second there.
Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, it's the older style of Gigantopithecus reconstructions where it's bipedal, and you can ride it,
Yeah.
which I think I
It's
think
really
that's a
cool.
good choice. You know?
Yeah. You look like it looks like a little kid on his dad's shoulders.
Exactly. Which, I mean, it's the right size for it.
Yeah. Like, it would be a very tiny Gigantopithecus baby.
Yeah. But even though it's not accurate to what we currently think of Gigantopithecus, this was a very common style of reconstruction for a very long time. And actually, it probably was accurate at the time that the Gigantopithecus came out for Ark, right?
I
Um,
think.
'Cause,
Like, when did it come out?
well, according to Dom, it was one of the first creatures added after the initial release.
So, hmm.
So I want to say 2015.
I mean,
I'm
that's
checking the
only a
wiki.
year. That's only a year before Jungle Books, so
Or, yeah, 2015.
seems a little recent. But I thought like the new reconstruction was earlier than that.
Um, I'm not sure. Oh, also, it has its own species name. It is not Gigantopithecus blackeye. And actually, I haven't read one of these out in a while. Mind if I take a turn?
By all means,
Okay. I won't do a German voice. I've already done. I'll just do narrator voice.
do Caesar from Planet of the Apes.
So you want me to go slow and more raspy like this, kind of?
Yes, Caesar.
Oh dear. Gigantopithecus febrator from the Pleistocene, diet herbivore. Gigantopithecus febrator is a strange creature. It is usually quite passive, but it has a very short temper when it comes to its own personal space. Once another creature gets close, this gentle giant quickly becomes a rampaging beast. Best to give them a wide berth. I have occasionally seen Gigantopithecus jumping to grab vines that it can traverse and swing on, but otherwise it seems most happy to lay about, picking berries from plants lazily.
Okay, let me finish this up.
Domesticated. In addition to being at home picking berries, a tamed Gigantopithecus can be taught to harvest the fibers found on many plants as well. It appears to be entirely content to pick at plants all day, eat the berries, and carry fiber resources for its tribe. Playful once tamed, Gigantopithecus seems to enjoy throwing the creatures or riders it's carrying into the air. It probably feels that this activity is a game, but clever brigands can use this game to vault over walls and small cliffs.
What was that?
Together.
Oh, that was murder on my throat.
That was awesome.
Oh, that was horrible.
Thank you, Caesar.
That said, a few interesting things to note in that dossier entry. First off, this is one of the few creatures that doesn't aggro to you on sight. It's passive until you invade its personal space.
In which case, find out.
It will go on the attack, and it does in fact go apeshit.
But
Yeah. That said, also real quick, I really like this one. Like, I like the kind of reddish fur and the dark skin. I think it looks really good.
Oh my god, you could grind meat on that. I mean, what?
Oy vey. But also, well, I think something died. It's really good at gathering fiber. Like, really good at gathering fiber. Which I say that. Oh, well, there goes the jump.
So yeah, it just catapults you.
And I said that, and it wasn't gathering fiber. Does it just do it when it's wandering?
I think.
Okay. Because the one I had set to wander earlier was gathering fiber. Yeah. It was gathering quite a bit, actually. I don't know where it is now.
But yeah, pretty up to. It's pretty in character. Like,
Yeah.
given Gigantopithecus eat fibrous plants, it makes sense.
And it's also it can move in 360 degrees, which not a lot of the Ark creatures can. Because this game
Which
is
is
aging.
kind of cool. Is was what?
Because this game is aging.
Uh, yeah, the combat of this game is not great.
Yeah. It's also it's pretty fast, which doesn't especially fit with the modern Gigantopithecus, but it does fit with Bigfoot, because Bigfoot's usually
Yep.
described as extremely quick. Yeah, and it can also throw you. But oh, you can aim it too.
Bananas!
Yeah, it can actually throw you pretty far. I'm not sure there's a ton else to say, honestly.
Hmm.
Like it's a passive tame, so you have to walk behind it. Don't touch it, but you have to feed it berries.
Yes. It's basically like it's your monkey friend.
Well, unless you touch it, and then it's very much not.
It's very much just a monkey.
But they're a good tame, and they're actually pretty good in a fight. Let me see if I can start a fight really quick. Because they attack really fast, and they actually have pretty good knockback on their attacks. So as long as you're not fighting something too big, they're pretty good at fighting. With that said, if you are fighting something big, you can probably just run away. Oh hey, is that a wild one, or nope? Oh wait, yeah, this is the one that's on Wander, so let's see. How much
Ape.
fiber do you have?
Wait. Ape, not
Oh yes.
kill. Ape.
Oh, what is it gonna do to the compies? Oh, wrong attack. Oh, well.
Oh, oh god.
So as you can see, Ape hit hard. Oh wow, yeah, there goes the raptors. Oh, and an alpha raptor. Okay, this could be bad.
This is just King Kong 2005.
This is bad.
Uh-oh. Run away!
Oh, fuck.
Run away!
Oh no,
Uh-oh, ocean.
I'm
No,
being juggled. Oh no. Oh.
Oh no.
Ape together die, I guess.
Apes alone, weak. Apes together, strong.
I'll just
Oh,
fly
god
back.
damn.
Damn.
Now tune in next time for Arkosaurs, where we're asking why Doc's avatar is packing an entire bakery. Oh shit! No.
Yep, I'm away. Yeah, we're gonna leave that mess behind and go back into the forest.
Back to the trees with our return to monkey.
Yes. And on that note, we usually, or at least we have been trying to size them, or size our creatures here on the Ark. And, you know, I think that's
Pretty-
probably actually an accurate size.
Yeah, it's like one of the upper estimates, but it's pretty good.
Just under 3 meters tall.
I can see that.
Yeah, so, hey, good on you, Ark Gigantopithecus. You're properly sized.
Thank you, tiny man or tiny woman.
Well, do you have anything else to say, or should we get to the ranking?
I do not. I think I'm ready to go to Rankin.
All right. Well, even though he's not here right now, we do have a ranking from Dom.
Yes, we do. And let me pull that up. Yes, he ranks it as A tier. In his own words, it's a great early game tame. It can wear funny hats, and while yes, it is currently not very accurate, like that matters much, it still gives Big Monkey. So he gives it an A.
Although earlier today he did rank it in, or yesterday he ranked it an S. So I wonder what made his ranking go down.
Maybe
Here,
he didn't return to monkey enough.
You know what? It looks like he's online, so I'll just go ahead and ping him really quick. You want to go while I message him?
Yes, so I kind of mirrored that. I do enjoy this Gigantopithecus. Like, it is very outdated, but there's a difference between outdated and inaccurate. Outdated is what we thought for the time, and it's pretty good for the time, even if it doesn't hold up today. Whereas inaccurate is just they didn't even try. And this is a pretty good pre-2010s Gigantopithecus. It's not a great current Gigantopithecus, but it's a very good Bigfoot Gigantopithecus. It's got a lot of charm to it. Plus, it's Big Monkey, so can never go wrong with Big Monkey.
Sorry, I'm still dying.
Uh-oh.
Also, we do have confirmation from Dom that his is an A.
So yes, mine is an A as well.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to give it an A+. I really like this guy. I don't tame them too often, but when I do, they're very dependable, and they're very useful. They're great for gathering fiber. They're fun, honestly, to ride and fight with. My only critique is that you can't make a saddle for them. And while you can give them hats, they usually burn through the durability super quickly, just because of how much damage they have to absorb. But with that said...
Okay, I take that back. This is S tier for that hat alone.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say S-.
Yeah.
I
in
forgot how fun they look with hats.
Try it with other hats.
Oh, let's see. What other hats can I do? Let's...
Cowboy monkey.
I have a few hats here, so I'll just make, like, I don't know, 6.
Is there like a Roman hat or Spartan hat they can use?
If there is, I do not have it, sadly. Are you not a helmet? No, you're a stego costume. Yeah, I think I said it absolutely. S-, but S.
A plus.
Which, wait, you say A+?
Yeah, solid A.
I think you can decide. I think you can decide if it's like an A or an S tier, depending on your vote.
The hats are great, but in a vacuum without the hats, it is definitely A.
Okay. Well, I mean, the hats are part of the design, technically.
I mean, yeah, but I'm thinking of it alone without... Because if we're judging the Gigantopithecus with hats, we would have to judge the dinosaurs with armor. So...
I mean...
But these are funny
fair.
hats.
I love the cowboy. Well,
Howdy,
I guess...
monkey.
Oh, Dom has our tier list, sadly. So I'll probably ask him to record us placing it later, but I guess that makes this an A.
Yeah?
What else
2
did we
A's and
have
an
in A
S.
tier?
Angler?
Was Doedicarus an A?
I. Let me pull up our last video.
Angler was a B.
As was Allosaurus a B?
Allo started the depths of B tier.
Let me see our tier list. Just Dedicurus.
Just okay. So do we think above or below Doedicarus?
Above. No question.
You know, I can agree to that. Top of A tier.
Yeah.
Good job, Giganto. But that said, there is something we can do without Dom. As I take down the screen share. Shall
Is that
we spin
Speaking
the
of
wheel?
reinventing the wheels?
I see what you did there. Let me see. Wow, my throat is not happy. Jesus. I don't think I'll ever do that again.
Well, unless we have any more prehistoric apes in the game.
We have a monkey.
For that, you can probably do, like, Master Monkey from Kung Fu Panda or something.
No, I'm not doing that.
Aw. Shame.
Alright, let's give it a quick couple shuffles. Any bets?
Shuffle.
We think invertebrate? Fictional?
Hopefully, vertebrate.
Oh, Yeti's on there. Don't know where it is in here, but apparently it's in here.
Wait, there's a Yeti in Ark?
Yeah, Yeti is... They spawn in a particular cave. They're just Gigantopithecus, so I'm just gonna take that out. Okay, shall we?
We shall.
Here we go!
And...
Oh! We're going back to Australia, mate!
Speaking of ontogenetic niche partitioning in Komodo dragons.
Oh no!
Yes.
Oh, okay. You know, maybe we can get Dom's reaction in here. Let's see.
Because, like, it's not that bad of a megalania, but
I'm not sure what I'm gonna rank it. But ooh, that's exciting though.
we're gonna be talking a whole lot more about the real Skull Island.
Yeah, we get to return to Skull Island too. I was afraid we were gonna get Mega Colon. We were gonna have like 5 things to say about it.
Now we got 15.
Oh, we have a lot. Oh
Yeah,
man.
we have really good specimens for megalania. Or, I'm sorry,
Oh.
Varanus priscus for all you purists.
Oh, and we have Dom's reaction. You know, I'm just gonna... Y'all know what he says.
Yeah.
Honk. Yes. And I spaced that enough that I can just put the honk in there. Well, I know I'm excited.
Yeah,
So-
as am I.
So to y'all out there on the internet, if you enjoyed this episode talking about a big old ape, make sure to come back next week when we talk about a big old lizard. And, you know, maybe
Yep.
just to keep up the spirit of things, maybe we can have them fight.
Let them fight.
No! Damn it! Oh, I can't do it. Oh, Jesus Christ.
The arrogance of the
Hi,
wheel
everybody.
is thinking fate is in our control and not the other way around. Let them fight.